My name is Erica Williams, an executive leader with a 25-year career in the healthcare industry. The last 15 of those years, I've led IT teams for large health systems and currently serve as a market CIO in Texas. I'm passionate about developing the next generation of leaders and leveraging technology to improve the clinician and patient experience. Welcome to This Week Health, where we host channels and events dedicated to transforming healthcare, one connection at a time. Our Town Hall podcast series, Road to Flourish, explores the inspiring career journeys of executives in healthcare. Whether you're starting out, seeking growth, or feeling stuck, this podcast aims to empower you. Let's jump right into today's episode. Hello, welcome to Road to Flourish. This is a series on the Town Hall channel where we're going to explore the career journeys of successful leaders in healthcare. In each episode, we'll dive into stories of executives who have navigated twists and turns of their professional paths, overcome challenges, and achieve success in their own unique ways. Today, Chani Cordero, CIO of Brooke Army Medical Center, joins us. Welcome, Chani.
Good morning. Thank you.
So I love the story of how we met. And I think it's a really great example of never to be shy and talk to the person in the elevator, walk up to the person that you don't know in a meeting, because I was getting into the Uber, leaving Chimefall Forum. I was in my zone as I typically am when I'm trying to get somewhere. And you ran over and said, "Hey, are you going to the airport?" And of course I was. And you're like, "Can I ride with you, please? I'm late. I need to get there." And at that time, we were complete strangers, and we have been connected ever since, and our paths continue to cross. So I love how we met.
You didn't tell the rest of the story that we were both we were in California flying to Texas, and you're like, "What airline?" I'm like, "American." You're like, "I'm not American." We go through security. You're like, "Where are you flying to?" You're like, "Austin." I'm like, "I'm flying to Austin." At this point, you're like, "I think she's following me." It was just hilarious. What are the odds that we were absolutely two strangers and then end up flying to the same destination? That was bizarre.
I know. It's sometimes things are just meant to be, and you cross with who you're supposed to have in your network and in your life. Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, tell us about your current role at Brooke Army Medical Center and anything you want to share with us in that role.
No, first, I wanted to say thank you for bringing me on. And you're right, the way we first met is actually really hilarious. So I am at Brooke Army Medical Center. It's a 425-bed hospital here in San Antonio, level 1 trauma center. I am active duty, and so I always have to throw my active duty disclaimer that as we talk about any questions today, these views are my own, and it's not a reflection or an endorsement from the Department of Defense or Defense Health Agency. But I'm very happy. I'm truly love the mission of our hospital. We're a little bit more unique compared to most military hospitals, and that's because we are a level 1 trauma hospital. And so with that designation, that actually allows us to receive patients and beneficiaries that we normally wouldn't be able to see. And so we serve the city of San Antonio as that level 1 hospital. In addition, because the amazing physicians and clinicians that we have at our hospital, we also generally get very special guests or patients from all over the world that come to our hospital.
Okay. I didn't realize that. And I didn't realize that trauma hospital or trauma centers weren't common within the military. Interesting.
We do have them in there's a couple of cities like in Tacoma, Washington. We have Mannequin Army Hospital, but I want to say it's a level 2, maybe a level 3. So we're just the only level 1.
Well, looking back in your career, what would you consider your first big career breakthrough was, and how did it shape your journey moving forward?
So interesting enough, I joined the military initially enlisted, which is straight out of high school into the reserves. And from that point, I went to college and got a degree in chemistry and applied for the ROTC scholarship that helped cover my college tuition. And so I came into active duty as a second lieutenant, which is the grade that most people come in the officer corps. And so for the first 10 years of my career, I would say that it was run of the mill type of career. I mean, no one looked at me and says, "Oh, she's going to be like a general, like the shooting star of the world." And no one was like, "Oh, why is she here?" So
Just
it was a
cruising.
pretty average career. And one of the, I kind of say breaks, but it was actually a failure, was that I had a supervisor, so my boss's boss, that for whatever reason, we just didn't gel very well. And it caused me to receive an evaluation that wasn't very favorable. And I thought it was a career ender. I thought that my military career was over. At the time, I was the grade of major in the Army, which is an O4. So essentially it's 6 levels, right? O1 to O6, as we call it, with O6 being a colonel and general is after that. So I was an O4, middle of my career. And because of that, I thought I probably will never get promoted again. And so that forced me to look at other opportunities like Chime, and I wanted to get a mentor outside of the military and start getting involved in professional organizations. And through Chime, I had an opportunity to be a speaker. They were looking for a speaker, and they were looking for someone that had a background in, like, IT and security in Houston. And they, I got invited to go, and I was so nervous. I was, it was the first time I ever spoke in front of people. And I thought I did terrible. Like, I thought, it was about security, which, no one can make security fun, right? It's a terrible topic, boring topic. And I thought I did a horrible job. Well, a lot of people actually said they like the fact that it was relatable and that it was real. And so from there, that one opportunity, I just started getting all of these invitations to come and speak. And even to this day, I still think I'm terrible. I'm like, why do people want to hear me speak? I have nothing to say.
We're so hard on ourselves, aren't we?
But that's how it started. It's just, having that terrible evaluation, looking for mentors and opportunities and getting involved in professional organizations. And all of a sudden, I started getting these opportunities.
I love that. And the red lights in our lives and careers are really the pivotal moments, and they're really hard at the time. But looking back, those are the ones that made us stronger and kept going and look in other directions. And it was exactly what we needed. It didn't feel like it at the time, but it made doing that story pivot and head towards a different path that took you where you wanted to go and where you needed to go.
Yeah, exactly. What's fascinating is that because of that, I took opportunities and risks that I don't think I would have. And I also grind harder because I knew I didn't have that safety net of the military, because I thought my career was over. And so when it came from getting promoted, I was like, I was okay. I was okay if I didn't get promoted or not. And that helped.
Well, when we first talked about us having this conversation and you joining the podcast, we talked about how people often view someone in a role that they admire or aspire to and think, wow, they're so lucky. And the reality, as we were talking about, is that's just really the tip of the iceberg and the visible success that people see. And without really understanding what hard work and challenges and sacrifices beneath all of that brought you where you are today. And you had shared a specific conversation that you had with someone too.
So I was at another cyber conference, and I was the closing keynote. And we talked about innovation and leadership and things of that nature in the cyberspace. And so after, there was a happy hour, and there was a lot of students there, college students and students getting their masters. And at the happy hour, the student said, "What does it feel to make it, to be a top?" And I looked around like, who would I be? And that's when I realized, I'm like, I don't think anybody ever feels like they made it and they're the ones at the top. But that was really nice of the young man to say that, because it did give me an opportunity to reflect and say, people may see me at the top and I'm still grinding like I did years ago when I thought my career was over. But I also reflect and I said, what are you doing to bring somebody else with you, the next generation? And so that conversation kind of spurred me to make me realize I am the oldest person in the room. Purely speaking, especially if you go in the military, it's a young person's career, right? The average age is from 18 to 20, I think 1830 or something like that. And so I realized I am senior. And so that spurred me to start a women in IT group, coaching group, mentoring group for the ladies in my organization. Of course, it's open to everybody to attend, and I push it out. And sometimes a lot of our my male employees also attend, but we meet once a quarter and we talk about topics, anything from time management to career building, resumes, credit, how important and credit and investment opportunities. And so it made me realize, like, yeah, I am the old lady and I need to help others.
Yeah, I think in the IT world, the CIO is kind of it, right? That's for people earlier in their career, that is like you've made it. But as soon as you get there, you continue to want to grow and learn. And so it's not it once you're there. So I loved you sharing that story. Can you share something about a significant obstacle that you faced in your career and how you handled it, maybe and how it affected you professionally and personally? You did hit on that a little bit with the red light, but anything else or expanding upon that?
So in that particular situation I was in, I have never faced someone who outwardly really just didn't like me, right? I don't even think I believed people don't like people, right? I don't think when people say, oh, I didn't get the promotion, I didn't get the evaluation, I didn't get something that I feel like I deserve is because they didn't like me. I didn't believe in that. I thought, no, I'm sure it was you. Like I was sure it was you why that didn't happen and not for the fact that it was a personal dislike. And when it happened to me, I didn't know what to do because I'm like, everybody likes me. What do you mean someone doesn't like me? That's not true.
Right.
And how to handle that is so that particular supervisor, again, boss's boss. So it was kind of awkward for my boss at the time, of course. And I didn't know how to approach when I was in a room with that person. I didn't know how to respond. And it actually, when I would run into him or he would ask me something, I would actually get like this anxiety attack that hit me in the pit of my stomach and almost was like speechless by design because it really affected me that much. And that when I received that evaluation, I of course wanted to chit chat with him. And I was overseas, so it was a 12-hour difference. And so when I came back to the United States and to try to have that phone call with him, it was like 3 a.m. because he wouldn't take a call from me or wouldn't allow me to talk to him before I had to leave. And when I heard his reasoning and his rationale, it was ridiculous, right? There was no good reason and no rationale other than I don't like you.
Yeah.
And so I let that fester for 2 years. I mean, that's all I could focus on and think about is why didn't he like me? Right. And why did he give me that type of evaluation? And what I got from that is one is courage because I was literally would tremble if he came into the area. And I made a vow that day, I will never let someone make me feel that way or talk to me that way ever again.
Mhm. I think that's an important message for people to understand in their careers because, I mean, in the end, we're all humans, right? We don't always act in a leader role. And there are situations where people just don't click or fit. And you'd think that wouldn't be the situation in the workplace. But again, we're going back to we're all human, it happens. And there are times in your career, and I've experienced it too, where it's just, you hear people say it's not a fit, and it's really about you and your leader, for whatever reason, are not jiving. And it's a matter of determining how you're going to handle that, because if you do let it fester, then it's going to impact your image and your career in a negative way. So do you pivot and find another opportunity if that's possible in another place in the organization that you're in? Or do you just try to use it as a learning opportunity to get through it? But that last one is really hard. I myself have struggled in thinking, okay, this is my opportunity to learn, and I need to figure out how to navigate and work with this type of person. But it is very hard, and you do have to be careful. I agree. And making sure that you're handling it in a way that you are proud of in the end, because it does impact your image regardless of the situation. So yeah, I'm glad you shared that, because that's a situation that many get in and feel the same, and it's okay, and it happens. And I think, and again, it's one of those red lights that it's something telling you that you have to learn or pivot to get to where you're supposed to be in your career in life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you're in it, it's hard to see around it. And
Mhm.
it's also hard not to take it personal,
Oh yeah,
because it is personal, because
it is.
it's directed to me. But like you said, we're all human. We recognize that I may feel the same way about someone, and there's
Mhm.
no fair to them, right? So
Yeah.
am I treating them in a way that's not dignity and respect, just because, like you said, we don't vibe very well, right? Our
Mhm.
personalities are not aligned. And so making sure I don't do that to someone.
Mhm. You mentioned that you had some mentors in supporting your journey. So, what type of mentor did you engage with and found that was most helpful for you, and how did they influence you?
So throughout my career, I've had different types of mentors for different types of reasons.
Mhm.
Sometimes I call them one-off mentorships, someone who maybe they are really successful in one area of life that I go to and I ask them questions and ask them how to help solve problems. Others I've met throughout my career where I'm like, I really wanted to aspire to be where they're at. And so it's the same thing. Can you help me with career decisions and choices?
Mhm.
But then my closest mentor was actually our former boss. So in that story about my career, so as a major, my next promotion opportunity is a lieutenant colonel or an O5.
Mhm.
And I was new into the organization, and I told my then boss, and I said, this is the challenges. I have a negative evaluation. I just came from that school program when the Army sent me to go to Baylor for 2 years.
Mhm.
And I have one good evaluation, and my promotion board is in a year. And so I was very honest from the beginning. I said, how can I earn opportunities or demonstrate that I am very capable for getting selected to the next rank? And we were very open and candid, and through that year we developed a relationship where he provided me career advice, but even more so he gave me opportunities, and some of them weren't very fun.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
would come to me and he would say, we need to develop this product or whatever, and I'm like, we you rich. Somehow I don't think it's we.
Yeah. It's a nice way of saying you, right?
Yes, exactly. But because of those opportunities, it allowed me to do very well in that position. And he, ended up retiring from the service and work as a civil servant. And then I still reach out to him. So even now, he still provides me advice on how to navigate at the senior level, because at the C-suite level, there's a different type of culture and environment that you have to navigate. And at every point of your career, it changes. And what made you successful in the beginning part or the middle part of your career will not necessarily make you successful or sustain success at the senior career. And so still having someone that you can bounce ideas with and also help you navigate is very important.
Mhm. So help us understand a little bit about what you had to develop from characteristics or things that maybe you weren't great at, but you needed to be to get to that next level. What were an example of something that you really knew you had to work on to be successful?
My bluntness. Not being so direct and blunt. And I'm still working on that. I'm still working on that softer side.
Yeah, but there's pros and cons of that, right? The opposite is not great as far as not telling people what they need to hear. But at the same time, everyone takes that a little differently. So, yeah. So how did you determine that was something that you needed to work on, and what types of things did you do to work on that?
So, I mean, really, I believe it was small scenarios that happened. And I realized part of it happened. It was because of how direct I was. So, case in point, about 7 or 8 years in my career, I had an opportunity to be the HR director for
Mhm.
our organization. At this time, different culture than IT, right? So just the people who work in HR, it's just a different environment than
Mhm.
say we work in a room full of guys. It could be very different working in a room full of women. It's a different environment, not better, not worse, just different. And one morning, or a few mornings actually, I would come into the room and just ask for updates and statuses or whatnot. And one of my employees actually complained that I didn't greet anyone and I would just bark answers or just ask for things. And I didn't say good morning. I didn't acknowledge them. I never did the small talk or things of that nature. And
Mhm.
so my boss pulled me aside and said it would be customary to at least be polite and courteous and say the greeting of the day or whatnot. Of course, at the time, I'm young and I'm like, I'm not here to make friends.
Thanks.
I'm not here to do a job. And did you
Mhm.
get that report or not? Like,
Right. Yeah.
and so it's something very small like that. But I realized, like, hey, maybe I'm being too forward and should probably take the time to do the greeting of the day and to engage in small talk and things of that nature instead of just like
Mhm.
ask for something. And so again, over time in IT, we're storytellers, right? And when we are trying to demonstrate a vision or demonstrate value or ROI on a technology solution, if we say what we're really thinking,
Right.
that's not going to go very well.
Right. Yeah, it's taking the black and white and putting some color in it for sure. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a hard transition, that going from an individual contributor to a leader, is the expectation is that that's the natural progression, but it's not for everyone because it's such a drastic change from things, and your focus on getting things and tasks done, to at a manager level getting things and tasks done through others, and then even higher, you're influencing leaders who are influencing leaders. So it's all about people, and
Yeah.
the focus completely changes, and it's a hard transition. I have experience as you did, where very black and white, and having to be like, well, wait a minute. Yeah,
Let me take that
it's
back. Let me take
different.
that back.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that for sure. Well, and the keys to success on this road to flourishing, if you were to give yourself, your younger self, advice, what piece of career advice would you give yourself?
You belong. I think that would be the greatest takeaway from where I am now to where 20 years ago. I think before I was like, I don't feel like I should be here, right?
Mhm.
Like, what do I know? I don't know anything. I
Mhm.
remember going to my first Chime event and we're doing the focus groups where a person brings a problem or a challenge and everybody discusses it. And I remember thinking, why am I here? I don't know anything. And then we start talking, and it's like, oh, I know more than I believe I do. And
Mhm.
giving myself that grace and telling my younger self, just continue to do your best. And if you don't feel like you need to be there, then you need to prepare yourself to be there. But you absolutely deserve a seat at the table.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're invited or in the room, you absolutely belong for sure. Yeah, love
Exactly.
that. Okay. Well, thanks, Chani. It was lovely to talk with you again. And I loved hearing your story. And thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with us today. And I appreciate everything.
No, thank you for coming on. I always feel like sometimes these podcasts is almost like therapy, right? Like I'm like laying on the couch and be like, and then when I was 21,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I got that off my chest. I feel great now.
I know, you're ready for the day now. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Town Hall. A special thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their insights. Our mission is to transform healthcare one connection at a time. And these episodes are crafted to bring you perspectives straight from the leaders who are reshaping the industry. Use these discussions as an opportunity to inspire and mentor your team. And if you enjoyed the episode, one of the best ways you can support the show is by subscribing and leaving a rating. Remember, every red light leads to a green light. Thanks for listening.